Hi. So my name's Brennan. I am one of the pastors here. Hey to everybody in the room, everybody in Westside, and welcome to everybody who's watching online. So I am one of the youth pastors and the young adults pastor here at Creekside. So I don't get to teach on Sunday mornings a whole lot because I'm teaching in other places. So you can imagine how excited I was when Pete asked me to come and teach on Sunday morning, but then he revealed what the title was of the most edgy sermon series of the year, which is, How's Your Hate Life? I was like, that sounds fun. Yes, I would love to do that. But we've been walking through a passage in Proverbs talking about 7 things that God hates. And it would be easy to think about this as just a list of stuff that God just doesn't want you to do because he just doesn't want you to do it. I had a job at a car wash. At one point, we detailed cars, very expensive cars, and very, very old and very dirty cars that were very, very gross. We did that all day long. 40 hours a week, we detailed these cars. And we had one boss who was a part owner of our car wash. And so he would walk around and he would come and tell us how to do stuff. The thing was that he didn't really know how to do stuff. He would come around and be like, oh, you missed a spot, or you should do it like this. And so he knew something about car washes and detailing, but he just owned the wash. He didn't actually do the work. But he would come around, give us tips and pointers, and then tell us to correct the things that we were doing. And we had to do it because he was the boss, and this was his world that we just worked in. And so he would come around, and if we sensed that he was coming behind us when we were like deep shampooing in someone's car, we knew he was behind us, we would start to do things the way that we knew he wanted to see them done. But we would do this not because we knew that it was a better way to do it. Often the ways that we were doing it was better, more efficient, faster was going to get us a better result. But we knew when he was behind us, we needed to do things the way he wanted them done, or else we were going to get in trouble because he was the boss. And it'd be easy to think about the things that God doesn't want you to do, kind of like that you need to do what he wants to see done when he's around because he's in charge. But that's actually not the way that God thinks about this stuff. So we've been unpacking this list of things that God hates. And he hates these things because they are sin, they are evil, but he hates them also when we do them because it's actually not the best thing for us. And he wants the best for us. So for us to hate the things that God hates is actually for us to step into a better kind of life. So we've been in a passage in Proverbs, and I'm just going to read through this, and you can take it in. So there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. So Pete asked me to come and teach 1 week. And he said, I want you to teach about people's hate life. And I was like, okay, that doesn't sound like something I'm really excited to do, but I'm going to do it. And he's like, and then you can have half of a sentence to talk to people about, and you get to tell them that they're evil. So I was like, what an opportunity. Thank you so much. I am quite excited to be here. This is fun. I'm happy to be here. But so feet that are quick to rush into evil. That's what we're talking about this morning, which this seems like this could be the start and end of the message. Of course, God does not like evil. And of course, he would hate it if we were to run into evil things. Like if you think about Hitler, that was an evil person who did some evil stuff. Right? But there are so many ways that this message can go. Evil is it's so wide open that I was like, where do I start? Do I just say, don't do evil stuff and send him home? No, because we still got some time to fill here. Where do we go? And I just looked at this, feet that are quick to rush. So what are we quick to rush into? And I think the word evil, so yes, I put it really big, evil. Evil means evil in this passage, which was a bummer when I was trying to unpack it and make it even longer, that it just means stuff that God doesn't like. But evil, we are quick to rush into evil. And I think when I think about that, what am I quick to rush into? I'm quick in moments where I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for God to do something. I need God to show up in some way. But then I run to something else instead of him. So I would say that God hates this. God hates it when you run to someone or something instead of running to him. So when you run to someone or something in a moment where you should actually be turning to God, that's evil, and God hates it because it's not the best thing for you. It's not the best thing for me. So in just a moment, I'm going to start unpacking a story in Scripture. And as I go through it, I want you to think about this question for yourself. So what am I quick to run to? So in your life and in my life, what are you quick to run to in a moment where you're like, I should be going to God with this. I need to cope. Like I have pain in my life, but I end up going to just binge on Netflix to avoid my pain. Or I end up going to food, or I end up going to some kind of substance, or I go to that incognito browser on my laptop. What am I quick to rush to in a moment to try and get something that I need or to cover up some pain I'm feeling when I should actually be running to God? So that could be tons of things. So as we go through this, just start to think about that question. What am I quick to run to? And so the story that I want to go into, it's in the Old Testament, and so it's in Exodus, and it's the story of God's people. So we're going to be at the foot of Mount Sinai, but before the Israelites get there, what happens is they've been rescued out of Egypt. It's an incredible story. Moses is there. He's throwing down staffs. They're turning into snakes. There's water. Water that's turning into blood. There's frogs. There's locusts. There's death. There's all this crazy stuff that's happening. If you don't know this story, you should read it or watch that incredible movie that my grandmother showed me called The 10 Commandments that's shot in Technicolor, which I don't really know what that is, but it probably just means that it's not in black and white. But it's an incredible story of God rescuing his people and bringing them out of Egypt, okay? And then, so they've seen God do some incredible miracles. They've seen him provide for them. They've seen him part the waters of the Red Sea. They've seen him do like way more stuff than you and I have ever seen God do. And then they get to the foot of Mount Sinai and they hear God talk to them. So God, he's at Mount Sinai. He's in the form of a cloud, so they can see his presence. They can see that he's there. They learn about the 10 Commandments, so these 10 things, another list of 10 things that God doesn't want you to do. And they hear about this, and they make this covenant with God, saying that, God, we're going to be your people, and you are going to be our God. And they make this deal that they call a covenant. So in this moment, they've said, you're the only God that we're going to have. There's going to be no other God other than you, because that would have been very normal for them to have had more than one God. And then they made this deal. And then so Moses, he's going to go up the mountain again to talk to God, and this is where we're going to pick it up with the Israelites at the foot of the mountain. So when the people saw how long it was taking Moses to come back down the mountain, so he's been gone for 40 days and 40 nights, they gathered around Aaron, who was Moses' kind of sidekick. Come on, they said, make us some gods who can lead us, which is kind of confusing because Israel had just seen God lead them out of Egypt, right? So how quickly they forget. Make us some gods who can lead us. We don't know what happened to this fellow Moses, which I think is just really funny wording because he's the guy who brought them out of Egypt, who brought us here from the land of Egypt. So Aaron said, take the gold rings from the ears of your wives and sons and daughters and bring them to me. All the people took the gold rings from their ears and brought them to Aaron. Then Aaron took the gold, melted it down, and molded it into the shape of a calf. When the people saw it, they exclaimed, "O Israel, these are the gods who brought you out of the land of Egypt," which is, again, it's kind of a confusing situation we have happening here. They're saying that this calf has somehow brought them out. Aaron saw how excited the people were, so he built an altar in front of the calf. Then he announced, tomorrow will be a festival to the Lord. So we've got the people who are making this new God, but then Aaron's like, and then we'll celebrate that we'll have a festival of the Lord with this calf here. It's getting to be a pretty off the rails scenario. The people got up early the next morning to sacrifice burnt offerings and peace offerings. After this, they celebrated with feasting and drinking, and they indulged in pagan revelry. So things have gone off the rails completely now. And then so we kind of pan back up. Moses is talking with God up the mountain. The Lord told Moses, quick, go down the mountain. Your people whom you brought from the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. How quickly, everybody say quickly. How quickly they have turned from the way I commanded them to live. They have melted down gold and made a calf, and they have bowed down and sacrificed to it. They are saying, these are your gods, O Israel, who brought you out of Egypt, which is absolutely what had not just taken place in their life. So why did this happen? Why did the Israelites, after being saved by Yahweh, having had such an adventure that they made a movie about it later when they left Egypt. It was an incredible moment that they would be continuing to tell for generations and generations, yet they found themselves in a spot where they could see that God was up the mountain with Moses. He was communicating things to Moses. They had agreed, God, we are going to be your people and you are going to be our God. They had this amazing moment with him, yet still they made themselves another God. And they had broken the first two commandments that God had just given them, just recently, saying, you'll have no other God before me, and you will not make an idol. You will not make an image. So they've broken commands 1 and 2 right away, right off the bat. These things weren't even fully written down yet on the tablets, and they had broken them. But I would say that the Israelites, the reason that they did this is because they were looking for some quick results in their life. And I think if you can put yourselves in the mind of those people who have been at the foot of the mountain, they've been rescued from their home, which is a good thing, right? They've got out of Egypt, they're no longer slaves, but now they're sitting at the base of this mountain, and they've been sitting there and sitting there and sitting there, and God's talking to Moses. God is up the mountain with Moses, talking to him, and they aren't hearing it, but they know he's there, but they're in camp. They're in camp now with none of their stuff. They've got their families in tents. They're in the desert, which would be awful. They're at the foot of this mountain, which is not a great place to live, I'm sure. And they've got their families, they're complaining, they're running out of food. We need something. We need to alleviate the pain we're feeling. We need to know where we're going. We know that God has brought us this far, but we don't want to stay here. They would have had so many of these thoughts running through their head. We need some kind of relief. And this serving only one God was a very, very new thing, very just recently, pages before, that they said that they were going to do this. And so they're like, okay, what do? We need a fix here. We need something to at least alleviate the pain. Let's make an idol, which to you and I, forming a golden calf, I don't think there's many in this room that would say this is how you would fix the pain that you're feeling in your life, right? You would do something else. But they formed this golden calf, and this wasn't just some random animal. They weren't just trying to figure out, hey, what do we have enough gold to make? Okay, let's make a small baby animal of a calf. They were we know that the people in Egypt, they worship this bull god named Apis. So there was a bull god named Apis that they would have seen a lot, and probably some of them did worship Apis when they were in Egypt. And so they did what they saw everybody else doing. This is what the Israelites did. They did what everybody else was doing because they needed some quick results. They knew that God had done something, but he wasn't doing something for them right now. And they were hoping that by worshiping this god Apis, that he would do something for them right now to alleviate all the things that they were feeling in this moment. I don't think that they were necessarily saying, hey, we don't want anything to do with this God who's up the mountain with Moses, but we need something in this moment right now. And so as this calf is being constructed, as all of this stuff is taking place down at the foot of the mountain, Moses, he's up the mountain with God. And so he's having all these conversations about how things are going to be different, right? How they are going to be God's chosen people, how the things that have been in the past, they aren't going to be like that anymore. There's going to be people that are set apart, a chosen nation. All of this stuff is starting to unfold in these conversations with Moses. And then one of the things that starts to unfold at the very same time that the people are down making this calf is that God starts to tell Moses about the tabernacle. And so the tabernacle is the way that God is going to dwell amongst his people. So there's pages and pages of instructions about the tabernacle in Exodus that, if you're being honest, you probably skipped over when you get to them because they are super, super detailed. And it's I'm not sure how to apply this to my life. It's tough. So you read it and you just see pages and pages because it is so detailed, it is so intricate what is going to happen in this tabernacle. And so this is some of the stuff that you would see. So the tabernacle, as God unfolds it to Moses, this is God's initiative. So this is God saying, this is the way that things are going to be now. So this is all on God. He's doing this. And then within this tabernacle, within the system, there's going to be a willing offering that's requested. It's not going to be forced, but it's going to be, hey, I want you to come and bring willing offerings to me at the tabernacle. There's going to be painstaking preparations. This will not be something that is going to be quick to make. It's not going to be something that's going to be quick to set up. This is going to be painstaking. This is going to be a slow work. It's going to be lengthy. Yeah, and it's going to take forever to build this thing. Lengthy building process. There's going to be a safeguarding of divine holiness in this new way that I'm setting up. Not just anybody is going to be able to wander in and be with the presence of God. Only one time per year is someone going to go into the Holy of Holies. It's going to be a one time. There's a safeguarding of divine holiness in this tabernacle. It's going to be about an invisible God. God saying, I'm not going to be in an image. My presence will be there. It's an invisible God, but it's a personal and active God. So in Exodus, you're going to see the instructions for this tabernacle. And this really just generally summarizes the work that God is going to do through this tabernacle. So you have tabernacle instructions. Then you have the calf, the golden calf situation, sandwiched with more tabernacle instructions. Almost as if to say, look, the work that God is doing, it is lengthy. It is sometimes slow, but it is a good work. And then there's stuff that we do sometimes that like, man, we move quick. We move quick. And it contrasts in such a huge way. So check this out. So the golden calf, Tabernacle's God's initiative. This is people's initiative. They're like, we need something, let's make something. A willing offering is requested. Aaron saying, okay, everybody, hand over your gold. Let's make this thing, let's make it. Painstaking preparations. Absolutely no planning at all into this golden calf. Lengthy building process. It takes them like 2 sentences to make this in here. So it's made very quickly, and I cannot imagine how ugly it was, right? It probably was very bad. Safeguarding of divine holiness, immediate access. Like, come to the calf, touch it, it's all good. An invisible God, the visible God of this calf. Personal, active God, impersonal object. So you can see their quick fix for this situation, their quick feat. This calf that they made, it was very different than the work that God was trying to begin, the work that he had already been doing. He's doing a slow, an intentional, a very different work in their lives and in our lives. So the Israelites, though, their quick feet get them quick results. Quick feet get quick results. Everybody say that with me. Quick feet get quick results, right? It's true. So they wouldn't have done this if it didn't do something for them. Right? They would not have done this if it didn't do something for them. They all worshiped, they like feasted, they danced, they engaged in pagan revelry. You can imagine that for a moment, or maybe even a whole day, like they were like, this meets what I needed, right? This is exactly what I needed. And so as they did this, they broke, the first and second commandment, right? Of not to have any God before God himself, Yahweh, and then not to make any images. And so you're probably like, man, those guys really messed up. And you can really see that they have messed up, because like we would not be making golden calves in our backyards, right? If you are, come talk to me. We can, I don't know. I'll be surprised. But you may not be making full-size golden calves in your life, but maybe you've made some little golden calves. Look at that. We get a nice shot of that. Oh. That's some shopping channel stuff right there. So, where in your life, though, do you do this? Right? Because quick feet do get you quick results. Right? In those moments where you're like, wow, I have so much going on in my life. I know that I should be going to God with this, but I just need to cope so that I don't have to deal with what it is that I should be dealing with, that I don't have to process the things that I should be processing with God. It seems like God is taking too long. I understand that God has done something in my life and that maybe he's still doing something, but it seems like he's up the mountain with somebody else and doesn't have time to deal with me and my stuff. So in those moments when you feel that and you go to something else to give you something that only God can give you, or to help you deal with something that only God can truly help you deal with. All right, so maybe you're just quick to get angry, and that is like how you deal with stuff, and that helps you. It makes you feel good to some degree. Maybe you just have vacations. Like that is the thing that just keeps you sane, right? Getting to the cottage in the summer, you get 8 weeks off or whatever it is that you have, and that is what it is that does it for you, so that you can deal with the pressure, deal with the upset in your life. What are you using to cope? Because I think a lot of us, we have these little golden calves in our life, and sometimes it's very intentional. We're like, I know I shouldn't be doing this, but this is what I'm doing. Sometimes it's unintentional, where it's like, hey, this is actually a good thing, and it's kind of turned into something that it shouldn't have turned into. And so our quick feet get us quick results, and that's the reason that we would actually do this, the reason that we would cope in these ways, the reason that we would set up these little golden calves in our life is because it actually works, but it only works for a time. So I'm going to show you guys a graph. We've got it all this morning. We got props, we got a graph. So this is a dopamine wave. So dopamine is a chemical that's running through your body, and you have neuroreceptors in your brain. You can tell I've read an entire book on this, the whole thing, start to finish. It's a neuroreceptor in your head that really it motivates you to do stuff. Okay, it's what gets you up in the morning. Everybody has a different, like people who are just more chipper, more motivated, they have a higher level of dopamine that is always running through their body. So this dotted line is your baseline level of dopamine. So this is just like steadily going. And then you can imagine you're eating a freshly baked cookie. You're having one freshly baked cookie. You take a bite of it, you get a little bump in your dopamine. Not quite that high, but you get a little bump and you're like, wow. That was good. That was really good. Tasted good. But then, imagine a moment where you're like, I'm having the worst day ever. I'm having an awful day. I need to eat food. So if there's people like myself, you can cope with food, right? That's just how you deal with stuff. I'm just gonna eat some stuff that tastes good to make me feel good. So anybody here who's like, I can eat the whole batch or the whole box of cookies? That's the camp I live in, yeah. My mother and mother-in-law will vouch for me. I can do that. So you eat the whole box of cookies and you're like, this is amazing. This works. I should just eat a whole box of cookies all the time because I feel great. But what happens with your dopamine levels, your body does something pretty interesting. So say, I have no numbers here, but say that this rose you to a level 10 on your dopamine, like in your brain and in your body. You are feeling great, but your body does something to balance you out. Whatever level of dopamine that you achieve above your baseline level that is normal, so say you achieved level 10 here, your body's gonna drop you to negative 10 before it brings you back to your baseline to balance your body out. So that is why, so this is actually a cycle of addiction to something. It makes you feel awful, and then you go and get something again to make yourself feel better. So a lot of the coping mechanisms, and I'm not saying that all golden calves in your life are gonna send you through this cycle, but imagine your phone. Who here would say that you have a love-hate relationship with your phone? We've got a lot of people, and who would say you have a love-hate relationship with social media? I think even more people would say that. This little graph here is the exact reason that you feel that love-hate relationship with social media. You get that hit of being like, man, this is great. And so if you're coping with social media or looking for it for validation, it actually only brings you pain in the end, because it brings you more and more pain, and it actually gets harder and harder to get those good feelings from those things. So when we think about our golden calves in our life, and again, not all golden calves will stimulate that kind of response, but having a golden calf in your life, as hard as it is to say, God hates it because it's evil. It's not a good thing for you. It's missing the mark. It's sin in your life. And that is, we have this old Christian saying that sin promises you pleasure, but only brings you pain. And I think you can see that if you imagine just some sinful things that you might get into. You can imagine that on that graph right there. So this is not actually a great thing for you, because at first, your little golden calf, you're like, okay, I'm just gonna go to that thing, go to that person, go to that place, go to that site. And that actually really helped. But then the next time you go, it doesn't quite work the same way. This little golden calf's not as quick to greet you on the second time. On the third time, it's even worse. And then on the fourth time, you're like, I need to actually do something bigger, better, or I need to make an additional golden calf to help me cope in this situation. So this is not the best thing for us. And so when we make these little golden calves, whether it's intentional or unintentional, we go back to those first two commandments. So God hates it when we put something before him, right? When we make an image intentionally or intentionally and start to essentially worship it. So why does he hate that? It's not just because he wants all of your attention. He does want all of your attention, and he deserves all of your attention. But when we put ourselves in a spot where we have created a golden calf, it actually upsets the order of things. If you think back to the garden, all right, so way back at the beginning of your Bible, there was a created order to stuff. God created the heavens and the earth. He created everything in it, created animals and plants and the environment. And then he created people, and he said, people, I want you to watch over this. I want you to rule over this, and then I will rule over you. So when we create a golden calf, when we are looking for something from something that absolutely cannot give it to us, you've made yourself a slave and a servant to something in creation that was never meant to be in that place. You've put it in a spot that it cannot deliver what you are looking for. You know, you've placed it in a power position in your life that only God deserves to be in, because only God can actually deliver what it is that you need. So it's not just because God's trying to spoil your fun. It's because you were created to live a different kind of life. You were created to serve only the one who can actually supply what it is that you need. Because when we look to things or people to supply the things that only God can help us with, man, you've put yourself in a position where you are going to be let down every single time. You know, so we are people who are quick to run to things, right? And we are quick to create little golden calves. So if that is our impulse, right? Because sometimes it's intentional, like I said, and I think more often than not, it's unintentional. How do we slow ourselves down if we are wired to run this way? And I think one of the keys we can find here in James 4:7. Everybody read this with me. So humble yourselves before God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. So bringing yourself before God and resisting the devil, and he will flee from you. So this doesn't say you need to defeat every single one of these golden calves in your life, right? This is not what it says. It says all that you need to do is simply resist. Because I would say that the enemy would love nothing more than for you and for me, if we're followers of Jesus, to create a bunch of little golden calves in our lives, intentionally or unintentionally, to divert us from the call that Jesus actually has and the way that he's called us to live, which is what is best for us. The enemy would love nothing more than for all of us to have a bunch of these in our back pockets. So all we need to do is actually just resist what the enemy is trying to do in our life. Resist that urge to move our quick feet towards the next thing that we think is going to help us cope, and to humble ourselves before God. So how do we create a little bit of resistance in our lives? So create positive resistance. Everybody read that with me. Create positive resistance. And I think the first step, it's a pre-step. Be gracious with yourself, okay? So you might be listening today and know exactly what your little golden calf is in your life. That thing that you've placed in a power position in your life that has a grip on you. Be gracious with yourself. You know, the part of following Jesus is becoming someone who looks, talks, acts, thinks more like Jesus, but it is a journey, right? We are being made holy. We are putting distance between ourselves and sin. Is a gradual thing. The practice and presence of sin will hopefully be not as strong in your life tomorrow as it is today. That is what being made holy is all about. So be gracious with yourself. Don't beat yourself up about this. So be gracious with yourself and slow yourself down. So really practically, if your golden calf is something that you actually go to, if it's your TV, if it's your money, if it's something at your job, if it's a person that shouldn't be in that position in your life, if it's something on your computer, how can you actually make it more difficult for you to run there, right? Is it app timers? Is it accountability? What is it that's actually going to physically slow you down? So slow yourself down. Everybody say, slow yourself down. And remember what he has done. So this is, I think the Israelites really missed this one, right? And we look at it and we're like, man, how could you possibly forget what God has done for you so recently? It was so incredible what God had just done in their lives. But remember what God has done, because it is so difficult to put yourself in a spot where you realize that God is currently working in your life when it feels like he might not be, right? So in my life, it's easy, and I'm sure in your life, you might find it easy to look back. You have all those situations where you're like, I don't understand what's happening. God's abandoned me. But then like a month later, you're like, I could see what he was doing. He was up to something all along, right? All the pieces were falling together. So that same God, though, that has been at work in your past, and that you're probably pretty confident will be at work in your future, God is consistent. God is a consistent God, so he is at work in your life right now. Whether you can see it, whether you can feel it, whether you can sense him, all of those things, God is at work right now. Remember what he has done in your life. That'll help you to slow your fast feet down. And then ask for help. So we have two very little kids. We have a 3-year-old and a moms say everything in months. She's like 1.5. I think Aaron would say she's like 19 and 3/4 months or something. All the moms are like, I know exactly what she's doing right now if she's at 19 and 3/4 months. What am I talking about? Ask for help. I need help. Ask for help. But we have this thing with our son Eli. So he's 3. He's pretty impulsive. If you've ever been around a toddler, they like whip stuff, they break stuff, they just like, and immediately apologize. They're not trying to be like, I don't know, just destroy your homes and stuff, but they are impulsive little people. And so we have a thing with Eli where we've taught him to say, stop, breathe, make a smart choice. And so he'll say, stop, breathe, make a smart choice. And he'll often just say, ask a grown-up for help, is what he says. But that impulsive nature that he has, right? We were all there once, and I think we're all still kind of there. We are better presented. We don't go into people's homes and trash them just because we wonder what will happen, right? But we're all still a little bit impulsive. We all have these fast feet that want to carry us towards something that is going to be quick, something that's going to satisfy the need, the longings that we have right now. So in those moments, and this is something that we can work on. We can just get better at anticipating that, like, I know I'm frustrated today, or I know I'm stressed, or I know that this event on the calendar is going to make me want to do this, or it's going to make me want to go there, or it's going to make me stop focusing on my present because I'm going to be so lost in something better in my future. When you get to those moments and you feel your feet starting to take you towards whatever your little golden calf is, stop, breathe, ask Jesus to help you, because this is just not something that you can handle fully on your own. You need his help. And it's just resisting the devil and he will flee. So this will take some work. It'll take some thought maybe to identify what your little golden calves are this week in your life and going on in your future. But this is the way that we were meant to live. God hates this because it is not the best thing for you. And he wants you to step into a more full, a more free, not perfect, but a more free life, because you were never meant to be a servant or a slave to anything else in your life. You were only meant to be a servant to him, to God. So let me pray for you guys this morning, and then we'll close. God, I just thank you for everybody in this room. I thank you for where everybody is at on their journey, whether they are a longtime Jesus follower or just here checking things out. Jesus, I just pray that you would continue to help us to identify where those little golden calves are in our life. When we are feeling like we are going to rush to something, to someone else other than you in those moments where we need something from you ultimately. God, I ask that you would help us to look to you. To help us to sense that slow work that you are maybe doing in our hearts. But God, I just pray that you would help us to resist, help us to slow ourselves down, and to go after the things that you have called us to go after. So God, we just thank you for all that you've done, all that you're doing, and all that you're going to do. In Jesus' name, amen.